Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Yo, Tank, let me tell you something. People, you gotta listen. You got to listen to when Ellaby talks. Ellaby talking too much. Maybe it's because he following Rolly Romero's pattern of behavior and just talking a whole lot with the lead up to this fight with Tank. But Leonard Ellaby went on to say something. And this is problematic. I know for a fact that Tank Davis wants to be on the pound per pound list. He wants to be the top dog in the sport. And he knows the only way to do that is by fighting other big name fighters, right? He felt he wasn't able to get that because he was signed to Mayweather Promotions. Tank said during an interview, I'm no longer attached to Mayweather Promotions. I'm free, so I can get it on with Devin Haney. He talked about getting it on with Kambosos, getting it on with anyone he wants now, because now he has more control of his career and he can fight those names. Now, you may say, well, why would Tank feel that way, right? Why would he think that he couldn't make the big fights while he was still with Mayweather Promotions? And I'm going to tell you, it's two things going on here, right, with Mayweather Promotions. And I don't necessarily disagree with them. But first we have to understand where Floyd is coming from. Floyd was a fighter. Leonard Ellaby was not a fighter. But Leonard Ellaby came up with Floyd. Leonard Ellaby saw what Floyd went through with Top Rank. We know Floyd wasn't satisfied with how Top Rank treated him. Floyd went through the whole check and balance system of fighting, getting titles, paying sanctioning fees, and promoters taking his money. He broke lock away from organizations taking his money, right? And the promoter taking his money. He broke lock with Top Rank, started doing his own thing. Mayweather started making gazillions of dollars. But what Mayweather realized at a certain point was, me fighting all these champions, me getting all these belts and paying sanctioning fees, pound for pound lists and all that stuff doesn't matter. What really matters for me, Floyd Mayweather, with everything that I went through and the money I lost early in my career, right now nobody's taking nothing from me. So I'm going to stack up my money. And I'm not going to worry about pound for pound. I'm going to worry about, I'll win the belt, but I'll let it go immediately so I don't have to pay those sanctioning fees. Floyd Mayweather became strictly about money and not necessarily about pound for pound. He doesn't care. Feels the list is subjective. Ellaby went through that whole process with Floyd Mayweather. Okay? So now, bring you up to where they are, to where Mayweather goes into promoting fighters. That is his mentality. Okay? So what Mayweather was able to do with his career, a guy like Tank Davis, who's watching everything who saw everything Mayweather did, being on pound for pound lists, winning titles, fighting the best, and all the accolades that came with that. Tank Davis wants to be endorsed the same way by Mayweather to get into those big fights, to get those championship belts, to get on the pound for pound list, and to make money. But that's the sticking point. Floyd doesn't want that. Leonard Ellaby doesn't want that for Tank. And I don't think it's because they don't want Tank to surpass Floyd. I think it's because they're like, why go out here and put yourself at risk against a Lomachenko, against anyone out there, even though I think they genuinely feel Tank would win. But why go out here and mess around with these hard fights when you can take on fights that are against a respectable opponent and still make the same amount of money? Not have to worry about no damn belts and sanctioning fees, and then you're on to the next. Because when Leonard Ellaby, who says he knows boxing, right? He said Tank's not going to get pound for pound credit for fighting anybody. Okay? So that's the way he's thinking. He's just not going to get it. And he says he does not care. This is Ellaby. And when Ellaby talks, he speaks for Mayweather Promotions. They do not care. At the end of the day, you can't feed your family off a pound for pound list. You can't go in the bank and ask for a loan to buy a house and say, I'm number so-and-so on the pound for pound list. It's an achievement, but it doesn't put a single dollar in your pocket. But putting butts in seats do. And Tank's great at doing that. He's one of the best fighters in the world, and he's going to remind everybody who's been sleeping on him what he can do on Saturday night. Now, when you think about it, that tells you that Mayweather Promotions, they want to make sure Tank keeps putting butts in seats against, respectable opponents, but not necessarily the type of risk that's going to affect the pay-per-view numbers, the money generated, and ultimately how Tank's performance in the ring benefits them. Now, at the same time, they've structured it kind of way to where Tank benefits greatly financially. But that's the sticking point. And I'm not saying either one is wrong. Tank wants the big money and the big names. Mayweather wants the big money, respectable names. The route that Mayweather is pushing him, he's not going to get to the pound-for-pound list. Okay? Because at some point they're going to say, okay, who's he fighting? The route Gervonta wants to go is, shoot, I want the money and the names, and I want to get on the pound-for-pound list. And that's the sticking point. Now, if Tank is able to break lock with Mayweather Promotions, now Tank can go on, get the money, get the big fights, get to that pound-for-pound list. And I think what he's going to do is Floyd's trying to prevent Tank from making the mistakes he made by getting all these belts and paying sanctioning fees. He's like, man, forget those belts. Just be about your money. But Tank, like Calvin Ford did with Tank, he tried to talk to Tank when Tank was out there making bad choices in life and getting in trouble, and arrested. He talked to him, but he didn't try to strong arm him away from the trouble. He's like, going out there and make your mistakes. Tank learned from that. And now he's like, I don't want nothing to do with that no more. So I think in this instance, Floyd needs to understand how you deal with a guy like Tank. Let him fall on his face. Don't let him, suffer too much, but let him take some bumps and bruises. And then it's going to come full circle where he's going to say, you know what? You were right. Okay? You say, give him a little rope. We'll see what he does. And I think that's the sticking point. But it's hard to disagree with Ellaby and Floyd Mayweather. But at the same time, this man wants achievements. He wants accolades. He wants, when he retires from boxing, okay, I'm a billionaire, but I never really I'm going to be more known for the fights that I didn't make. Triple G is already in that position, being known for fights he didn't make. Andre, going to be known for fights that didn't make. Jamal Charlo, being known for fights that he didn't make. Okay? Tank doesn't want to fall back into that category. Okay? I'm talking about Jamal Charlo, not Jamel. He's on his way. But that's the situation that Tank feels like he's in. I mean, Tank's in 147 and 130, 135. Shit, from 130 to 147, that all those divisions are extremely hot. And I say that because you got guys who can move up and down throughout those weight divisions, and you can make some really interesting fights. So that from 130 to 147 is all bubbling. It's all bubbling right now. Tank wants a piece of that. But Mayweather Promotions, like I said, they're strategizing a way to make this man a gazillionaire without taking on serious threats. That Pitbull Cruz, I think they knew it was a tough fight. I think they may have felt that it wasn't going to be that hard, but I knew who Pitbull Cruz was. It's like when I used to watch Andy Ruiz back in the day, and they put him into an age, I'm like, that guy's going to beat him. And then now the world's seen. Look what happened with Pitbull Cruz's profile. Andy Ruiz's profile is through the roof. But he played himself losing all that weight, trying to get 260 pounds instead of saying 260 pounds. And now he's out here looking like he has no punch resistance. He's about to go up against Luis Ortiz. Tough fight. Good fight. I think Andy Ruiz should put 20 pounds back on. And then he'll knock Ortiz out. Yeah, but if he's still running around trying to be 260 pounds, Ortiz is going to clip him early, my opinion. But same thing with Tank. Cherry picking, I don't even want to call Pitbull Cruz a cherry pick, but I think they thought it was going to go a little differently. But now he's here, and Tank wants the tough fights. So we'll see what happens Saturday night. I think he is in tough with Rolly. Some people don't. I do. I think Tank wins. On paper, you got to just give Tank, it's hard to go against somebody who's a three-division, 5-time champion, who's been in these positions before. It's hard to just go against him, against a guy like Rolly, 14 fights, 12 knockouts, don't know much about the big stage. Well, he's learning right now. But at the end of the day, after this fight, whatever Tank chooses to do, I see Tank going into a big fight, something that Mayweather would probably try to discourage, deter him away from that. But Tank's going to go into it because this man wants to be on the pound for pound list, and he needs to be on there. Earl Spence, you got to look at Tank and his peers. Earl Spence, even Adrian Broner, okay? And he's there around Mayweather. And he's looking to see what Jermell Charlo just did. And he's like, man, and Terrence Crawford too. He's like, these guys are making all these fights where the whole world's going crazy because it's the best fighting the best. And I can make the same fights I hear with a Shakur Stevenson, with a Devin Haney, with a Kambosos, with a Teofimo, with a Ryan Garcia. What the hell? But Mayweather's more like, no. Let's keep fighting these, B-rated fighters, getting you paid. You're going to sell no matter where you go. But I think Tank's just at that point where he's like, I don't care about the O on my record. I care about getting there, fighting the best, and proving myself. So that being said, I'm going to leave you guys with that. Leave your comments below. That's the sticking point. It's not money. It's about the pound for pound list. That's what Tank wants, to get on that list. He wants to fight the best. He wants to have the similar legacy as other great champions. Mayweather is one person who should understand, but at the same time, Mayweather learned from his mistakes. He's trying to make it easier on his fighters. I don't disagree with Mayweather, but at the same time, the man wants some achievements. Let's try to get him set up to get a couple achievements and accolades so when he retires, he's not known for the fights that weren't made. That being said, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the channel. Shout out to all the veterans. Y'all keep cool. I'm in the breeze.